another episode of Command Combat Battle Reports. Today we are doing Flames of War, with forces chosen from the Nuts expansion. It's probably my favorite title expansion. It's the response that an American officer gave when the Germans told him to surrender. This is wintertime around the Ardennes, when the Germans were making their final push in the Battle of the Bulge, and the American forces, though outgunned, held their ground as best they could. We are doing a hold the line scenario, which is appropriate for this expansion. And as you'd expect, the Americans are dug in and holding their ground, while the Germans are trying to push through them. Here's the battlefield, and the Americans are in position in the bombed out town, and dug in behind the hill where the Germans placed an objective. It's an American parachute company, so they are fearless veterans, and thus they're going to be very hard to dig out of there. And you'll notice these two jeeps on the road. You'll notice that they're also painted for the desert. That's because they're meant for another army. I'm using them here to distinguish them from the rest of the American army because they are actually German spies. They have been sent behind the American lines to cause confusion, and in this scenario they can be used to spread that confusion by driving up to units and causing chaos and all that sort of thing. The objectives are here out in the open, like I showed earlier, and here inside the town. That one house looks like it's getting rebuilt after the bombing, which is a real pity, seeing as they're just about to have another battle here. The Germans, meanwhile, are an SS Panzergrenadier company, so they're a little smaller and more compact than usual as well. But that looks like it's going to work well for them because it looks like they are going to try to push really strong in one specific area. So the Germans started off by doing a general advance. Their tanks are beginning to move into the woods, many of them crowded together. Some of the infantry trucks are breaking off a little bit from them. Along the road, one of the trucks slipped on the ice on the bridge and crashed down into the water. Looks like a couple of the infantry groups inside survived, though. The others managed to make it across and are moving up to that church with that nice high steeple up there. Perfect place for a sniper or a spotter. And it looks like that's exactly what they're doing, with the spotter moving right up towards that steeple. The Americans stayed put and let their aircraft go in to bomb the German tanks, but the German fighter came in and chased the American fighter bomber away. The German tanks have continued to move through the woods, although they are splitting up a bit more, so they are going a little bit slower. Looks like they have a spotter scooting up there to where he can see the Americans, although most of them are behind a hill, so it's going to be difficult for him to range in on anyone. A lot of the German infantry, meanwhile, have gotten out of their trucks to spread out so that they're not going to get taken out by those American planes. And at the church, the infantry has gotten into a defensive position, and the spotter has gotten up to the top. These are the views of the spotters, and so you can see exactly what they can see of the Americans. They have a view of the entire area, though a lot of the Americans are hidden behind the hill and in the buildings. The Americans do not move and give them a target. However, the spies come out moving. They get into position to block any ambushes coming out. One of them succeeds, and so there won't be any ambushes coming from that direction, so the German armor will be able to rush through there without fear of anti-tank guns taking them out. But the other one fails to stop any ambushes, and so the American anti-tank guns pop up there, fire the Stugs coming through the woods, manage to stun two of them, and the fighter bomber comes through to finish them off, but doesn't manage to do anything. So the Germans take advantage of this opportunity, having no ambush in their direct front, and the Panzer IVs are hurrying forward to try to charge into the American lines. The Stugs remain stunned and cannot move any further, while the infantry pushes up behind them. The spotters had the artillery range in on the AT guns. They didn't manage to succeed until the third turn, so they needed 6s to hit, and along the bottom you can see they were not successful. But they are ranged in on those AT guns. So here's the overall tactical situation. The German panzers are pushing directly forward at the hill where the objective is. They're going to try to run over the Americans who are behind it. Their job is made significantly easier with the spy who has stopped any ambush from being able to be right in front of them. So the Americans are really going to have a tough time on this left flank, along the bottom here. Along the top, the American right and the German left, the Americans are dug in, and they have their anti-tank guns here ready, but they're sort of misplaced because the German panzers are way at the bottom, and they're probably not going to be able to reach them except maybe in some side shots. The Germans, meanwhile, have artillery that can take that out, and spotters who can see those AT guns really clearly. They also have infantry here in the church, and some lined up here behind this lake. Now the lake is frozen over, so they're going to be able to rush past that from both of these directions. The Americans still have some machine gunners in ambush, but they have the spy up here near the town, who's probably going to be able to stop those machine gunners from coming out. The Americans come to life now, their first reinforcements getting on the board. The scout cars for the tank hunters. The jeep of that group has slid on the ice, crashing onto the side of the road. The German spy jeep did not slide, however. It moved over to the town and stopped the second American ambush from taking place right by the first one. It's a group of machine gunners, and they are now in a 3-story bombed-out building, one of them a little bit to the side and dug in. And even though it's not close to the center, it's probably a better position because they now won't be under the artillery template. It's also a better position for them because they have an angle on the church where they can hit some of the German infantry. They fired and took out one of the units, despite the cover of the church. Yeah, God doesn't exactly protect Nazis. Their AT guns fire at the Stugs again. They penetrate, but they can't back it up with firepower. The American Typhoon, meanwhile, comes around behind the German infantry that was getting into those trees for an attack on the side, and just wipes out pretty much the entire unit. That's really going to slow the Germans down. Between the machine gun fire, the 2 ambushes over there, I think this flank is pretty much taken care of. All they have left over here is a single infantry stand and the command stand, along with whatever's left in that church. So looking at the overall scene, this has not been a good turn for the Germans. Their push near the top has just been halted. Between the damage they took and the machine gunners that have come out, there's just no way they're going to be able to do anything up there. They're going to have to completely rely on that panzer push near the bottom. The German panzers do manage to push up towards the hill, but they're so scattered and they don't manage to do any damage to anything they can see. Further back, the Stugs have gotten moving again, and everybody seems to be funneling towards that side flank, their own right flank. Even the infantry from the church is now pouring out and heading over there towards the center. The German spy tries to maneuver around to cause some more havoc, but runs into the Hellcat, which suddenly pops out, firing at the German tanks. 5 Shermans come out of a corner as well, and also fire, taking out one of the German Panzer IVs. The anti-tank guns fire too, as well as machine guns, but they don't manage to hit any of their targets. The air cover comes in and does manage to take out 1 infantry, but somehow doesn't take out any more than that. So the Germans may just have enough forces to do something here. The German infantry is rushing across the road and taking the hill, getting the objective, and one of the Panzer IVs twists his turret and takes out one of the Hellcats. The Germans now are contesting one of the objectives. All they need to do is push the Americans away from it, and they have it. Much easier said than done. And now the firing begins in earnest. The Shermans move forward and stun one of the Stugs. The remaining Hellcat and the anti-tank guns fire at the Panzer IVs, take 2 of them out, and stun one of them. The machine guns spray the woods and get some really lucky hits. They needed 5s or 6s to hit, and they managed to hit 4 times. And the German infantry, needing only 3s or better to save, do not save twice. And just to add insult to injury, the American infantry inside the town fires at the Germans crossing the road, taking out another one of them. The Germans are really going to have a tough time making any push at this point, but they have to win this game. The Panzer IV gets moving again, it takes out the other Hellcat. The artillery rains down fire on the Americans, taking out one of the units and pinning down the rest, priming them perfectly for an assault. The German infantry runs in, but even being pinned, the Americans manage to hurl them back with exactly 5 hits. That's exactly what they needed. They also managed to kill off one of the German stands. It's alright though, the Germans have now brought in their machine guns, ready to help out on their next assault. They're also bringing in reinforcements from the rear, so they are prepared for another assault. The Americans are not going to let this happen though. The 2 Shermans have turned to them and just machine gunned the German infantry standing up there. They take out the 2 machine guns, and as you can see, the German saving throws are really horrible. 3 of the infantry stands that were going to assault are taken out by that machine gun fire. The other 3 Shermans fire the Stugs, stunning all 3 of them. They haven't destroyed them, but that might be enough to stop them. The anti-tank guns, meanwhile, take out the last remaining Panzer IV. That is it for the German armor. And if that wasn't enough, the American machine guns gun down 2 more German stands on the other flank. Luck was really not on the side of the Germans today. But they do still contest the objective, and as long as they have that fierceness on them, they are not going to run off this table. The Americans are primed to finish the Germans off. All they need to do to finish the Germans off at this point is assault them and finish this whole game off. But they're pinned and they didn't succeed at unpinning themselves. The company commander made them roll again. They succeeded, became unpinned. But then that German spy who's still over there, he managed to scare them into going pinned again. So the American company commander ran over there to challenge that spy, asked him a question about baseball. The German commander went, yeah, I like baseball, passed the test, and so the spy continues to be there and the Americans remain pinned. And so the game continues. The fearlessness of the SS is going to really come into play here, but not if they roll like that. 2 of their 3 Stugs roll 1s to get moving again. They only needed 3s or better, but they failed. The 1 Stug that got moving again fired at the American Shermans but did nothing to them. The artillery then came down on those American Shermans because they're so close together, missed 3 of them, hit 2 of them, but those back 2 that it hit managed to save. But the main event is the infantry, which was really heavily weakened but reinforced slightly. They fired at the American infantry, took out 1 stand, assaulted, took out another. The Americans then rolled their morale. All they need is a 3 or better since they're fearless, but they roll a 1. Their commander puts in his die. They roll again. He only gets a 2. They fail their morale and pull back. The Germans now possess the objective. They're the only ones on there, and if their turn begins with them still on it, and the Americans not contesting it, they will win this game. This may be a huge upset. The Americans answer back by first finishing off the Stugs with their Shermans. And then it comes down to their infantry. So they roll for their morale, they fail, their company commander makes them roll again, they succeed, but the spy once again interferes and keeps them pinned down. He once again questions the spy, and the spy again succeeds. The Germans may just have this. But then the American machine gunners gun a bunch of them down, pin them down, and the infantry from the town rushes out, dashes across the street, assaults the German infantry. They are in a heavy melee. Until at last the Americans kill them off to the man. Literally, they had to kill every single Nazi on that hill to win. That was a fight to the death, quite literally. But it came down in the Americans' favor, and they now have the objective uncontested. They have won this table. Well, congratulations to the American player. This has been an awesome game. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and happy gaming, everybody!